I'll jump in because I think our first project with Stephen was actually a collaboration through another owner. We met, I think it was a job meeting, just a few blocks from our office here, a few blocks from his new Rockford office. We are located in the Midwest. Um, and I think that was our first introduction to each other. But then it wasn't long before I think Stephen showed up with, I don't know, maybe a 12 pack of beer and a couple bottles of wine to the office on a Thursday. And I think we've been great friends and collaborators since. So did I miss anything, Stephen?
I think that, yeah,
You
hit the
forgot
nail on
about
the
that,
head.
didn't you?
Yeah, I might not have. Got to have fun in the architectural engineering
Yes.
world. So
Yeah. But it worked.
After that, I don't know how that project continued. I don't remember which project that was even at this point, but we've worked together on working on a couple of projects together right now, and it's kind of been a constant flow. They're
Mhm.
good to work with, easy to connect with. They're down the street or up the road, depending on which office, and yeah, it's been good.
yeah, I would say
Mhm.
from the architectural side, now we get to work with them as they develop their new building over in
Mhm.
Monroe area. So that's exciting.
It's so amazing to hear sometimes how relationships form. Jumped in a little bit earlier and like reminded that we met Jennifer and Aaron 2 years
Mhm.
ago at the AIA National Conference in San Francisco when I was on my way to a ping pong event hosted by CVG. It's incredibly powerful sometimes when I reflect back on life and how small little events across our lives can empower an ongoing relationship, which is really, really amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
really sad I didn't make it to that ping pong event.
Mhm.
Uh, we were leaving, so I hope you two had a ton of fun. I completely missed it.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
I would love to know, like, what kind of projects do your firms focus on? Like, is it, is there a range between residential work, commercial work, civic work? Like, love to give everyone here a little bit more context of what type of projects both of your firms work on.
Go
I'll
ahead,
I'll
Aaron.
jump in
Go
there.
ahead, Aaron.
Our firm Studio GWA, we mostly, but not exclusively, we're mostly in the adaptive reuse, especially historic tax credit project world. Not all of our projects fall under that category, but a lot of them are either that or adjacent. So a lot of old buildings, a lot of different uses as a result. So we're not necessarily in the occupancy type is varied pretty dramatically. One thing we don't really do a lot of is single family residential. We are mostly in the multifamily commercial. We do a lot of restaurants and things of that sort. People love the adaptive reuse spaces for the gathering spaces. So we've uh, we've done a little bit of civic work as well. We have a number of civic clients and municipalities that we work with because we also have an arm on the urban planning. We have an urban planning group as well. And so we sometimes there's a little bit of crossover between the architecture and urban design, urban planning for some projects in that way, which is really nice. But but yeah, so mostly adaptive reuse, mostly commercial in some form. But
And we differ slightly within our project styles. I think that's what's made this such a big proponent of what's been so successful between this relationship is the adaptive use and kind of the understanding that they have with those type of buildings. From Angus-Young side, we're more general practice. So anything from commercial and industrial, we will do high-rise residential R2 for different applications, but a majority of it, anything from industrial processing beef plant facilities to commercial spaces to government facilities, city halls, things of that nature. So we will, and a lot of times that's I would say dependent based on the market and where we're looking. We will travel pretty much anywhere for industrial work. And then for kind of more of the commercial work, we're more local Midwest.
And you guys are full service, so you have all the MEP arm of it, which is who we usually, I think why we usually team up with you guys. And, we were talking prior to starting this podcast, but sometimes we even go after the same projects architecturally. And I think it's great. Competition is great. But it's always been a good collaboration. And I think having an MEP team who has that architecture side is really only a benefit because I think it's a little bit more built in as far as what they expect, and they know how we work already because they're sitting next to them, in their own office.
So just for a little more context, how many folks are on each team and like how many active projects? And because you have like this portfolio of different types, do you have a sense for what that rough breakdown would be?
Get asked this question a lot, and I think we answer a little bit. The people, that part we can say for sure. I believe we're 14 full time, so we're relatively small. Active projects, and everybody on here is probably in the AE world, so they understand the challenges of keeping track of all of them, because some of them go away for a year or two at a time and then come back, and you never know if they're fully there or gone. But how many would you say, Jen, that we have as far as active projects in all the phases?
I would say at least over a couple dozen.
Yeah.
Again, some are a couple years old. They're still hanging out there. Some they move super slow and some move fast, and it might actually be more. But
our actual job list is much longer than that, but it's whether or not, some of them we don't hit very often, but we probably have between 50 or 60 in our actual active job list, but I wouldn't say they're all active. So,
true.
Which is plenty for our firm size.
From our side, we're 62, not including interns. So I think this year we have 5 or 6 interns coming in to help out. Active projects, thankfully, analytics keeps track of that for me. We have 384 active projects right now. And that ranges, like Studio GWA, from anywhere from SDs all the way through construction. So from that side, I would say, day-to-day basis, our DDs, CDs, and SD projects are probably in the hundreds. But it varies depending on seasonality and kind of workflow and set project size.
I'd love to hear more about how you structure those projects out.
That's always a challenge from our side when we're looking at them. We try to be as consistent. I think, like everybody, you try to set up the perfect system that's going to hit everything, and despite our great attempts, it never works. That's something that, there's always some caveat within a project that changes things, and it doesn't, the standard doesn't apply quite as well. So we still, though, try to, as far as phasing and timeline, phasing, we use the standard phasing for pretty much everything, with the exception of, like I mentioned, we have an urban planning side of the firm. That's a completely different animal. We get some interesting named phases and interesting grouping, just because it's usually by a different type of work with a municipality outlined by their particular need at that point. Yeah, there are particular requirements. But on the architecture and interior design side, we are typically in the conceptual design, schematic, on through construction administration side of things. And there may be slight variations depending upon the projects that have gone longer and scope changes. Inevitably, we end up maybe with some additional service sides. But typically we try to stay in those standard phases. Duration becomes a challenge, though. And we've also noticed, and Jen, jump in anywhere here, but we've noticed that maybe sometimes we're a little bit more optimistic with the phase durations, and I don't mean necessarily with what we can accomplish, though we are obviously off sometimes in timelines there, but also optimistic on response times and how project's going to move through. We all hope and anticipate the project goes from schematic design to construction documents and into construction in a consistent fashion, but project financing changes, the world situation changes, and everything adjusts the same way. As market conditions adjust, schedules change, which becomes an interesting project management challenge, both internally and then also with client side of things. So I don't know. Other comments on that, Jen?
No, I would agree. I think the challenge too is making sure that we keep our MEP team or consultants, in the loop when things do change, if they change. I know we've shared the Monograph has that nice ability to share schedules. You send the link and it's always like a live schedule link, and that's been helpful. As everyone knows, the other issue is when you're creating these proposals and you're putting these schedules together for the owners, and they don't quite understand why it's going to take so long, and you're trying to tell them, no, actually, this is like if everything in the world like aligned, if every star aligned, we think we could get it done in this short amount of time, but it's not going to happen. And they don't, you tried to give them examples of some hurdles that might actually, that we might come across. And I think that's where I personally struggle is conveying that to our clients on the things that the reality, the true reality of where things will likely end up. And Stephen, I don't know if you have any tricks that you can share with us, but it seems always like it's a struggle.
I would agree, and I think in today's world too, with everything being more and more fast-paced, we obviously try and stick to your standard schedules, your standard SD, phased approach. Sometimes those phases start to get a little blurred, which makes it more and more challenging on the design side of things. As teams, their expectations and then their realistic expectations and then maybe a client's desire, and just trying to manage that from a project management standpoint or an owner, being able to communicate kind of what is reality to the owner in a nice fashion, I would say. So as far as tricks, Jen, be patient. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no real way. It's just to be honest, it's just having the tolerance and being able to communicate and listen to your clients. That's all. That's what we try and do. It seems to work out most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or just push your engineering team a little harder and make them go faster. And
We do that sometimes.
Well, but it's true. Something that we have to kind of always remind ourselves when we're putting the proposal together or the timelines together. This isn't just us, because our consultants are lagging. Structural is going to be behind us. MEP is going to be behind us because we need to develop those base plans. And then, we think we're going to be done at this date, but they're not. And it's, I think it's something to always, I have to remind myself all the time that it's not just about me. We have other friends that we have to consider. So
This is what makes architecture and the process of making the built environment incredibly difficult. There's so many moving variables.
mhm,
We got events that we completely cannot control. So these are like the stock market, the markets itself,
mhm,
taxes, policies, government. Then you have expectation setting, um, language, communication, um, both with the client and then with all the other teams that have to roll up to each other. It's incredibly hard. Um, I've been asked many times in terms of like, well, building Monograph can't be that difficult. And I was like, it's extraordinarily difficult. Uh, we're trying to solve a very complex problem with a lot of different stakeholders. And we really want to help architects and engineers get all the way to the finish line. It is incredibly difficult. That's,
Yeah, it's
oh,
a interesting thing because I think coming into the industry, you have this expectation or maybe it's this dreamy view of, oh, projects are just like studio was whenever you were in college. And I have 3 months, start here, and then that's the end. And that's where it goes. But the reality is a lot messier. Even on, like Jen said, even when things go really smoothly, our smoothest projects still are not a perfect timeline. And especially when we're working in existing buildings almost exclusively, you encounter all sorts of things that I will often say that I'm not surprised, or I should say I'm surprised, though I was expecting to be surprised in many ways. It's coming. You just don't necessarily know what it is. And you've done enough of it to know that there will be something hiding somewhere that will cause an issue or
delay.
a delay, or as we often will say, we are encountering another opportunity to shine. So there's lots of variables that make it a very interesting. It's a very dynamic it's a very dynamic industry in that way, I would say.
It does make for a fantastic leader. And I think all three of you are incredible leaders because you embrace the ambiguity that impacts our lives every single day. Like that's just the fact of reality. It is not school. We don't start school on the day after Labor Day, and we don't end the day before Christmas. It's been a long time, so I hope that's still the school schedule. Uh, I wish life was so structured, but like I think really strong leadership exhibits the ability to navigate ambiguity, has a really good consistency that helps keeps things moving, but enough agility to kind of like manage things that come in and out of our lives, both work and professionally. Now I'm really curious, like how do you structure your time like on a regular daily, weekly, monthly, like from running the firm, running a project, running your lives. Um, I imagine there's also maybe a little bit different in terms of like the ambiguity of your daily schedule.
Go for it, Jen.
Yeah, a little bit. I try, I think one thing I've learned is that I just need to just go with it sometimes and not get too wound up when things don't go as planned. I try and fill my calendar with some of my to-do list as much as I possibly can, but I've learned the older I get, the more I have to take care of myself first, because if I'm not healthy or even mentally clear, then no, I can't convey my ideas. I can't have decent meetings. Um, it makes everything harder. So I think, from a business standpoint, we always, I always try to take, a few hours a week and just focus on that entirely. But that always doesn't always, it doesn't go as planned as well. So I don't know if you guys have any other,
I'd say,
um,
yeah, I would feed into that and say it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, being
mhm,
able to kind of live in a little bit of discomfort. We're not always going to be able to do everything that we want because things come up on a daily basis. You might
mhm,
have a task list, 10 items long, and those are the things I'm going to get done today, and you get one of them done. And you get home and you're just, mentally
mhm,
exhausted from days after like that. But just recognizing that, times come and go, and it's just doing your best to keep moving forward.
mhm. And then communicating that, I think
Yep.
communicating that to your own team, to your consultants, to your owners. I was really hoping to get farther this week and I just didn't. And that's, of course, it's easier to say. And then it's Sunday and you realize you haven't communicated your delay, but um, that's unfortunately part of life.
Yeah. I think, and Jen's got to experience this with me. I am a systems person. I like to try to establish she laughs because I
So
sit
true.
across from her most of the time and she gets to bear the brunt of a lot of it. But in my dream world, like you said, Robert, everything would be scheduled
An
and
app.
clean
Yep.
and predictable. Uh, and I have tried to go there and been very frustrated and discouraged when hasn't all been super clean and clear. And so I have similarly kind of backed off on some of that. Here's my expectation for my day. Schedule a lot of things. I have kids as well that are involved in a lot of things and try don't want to miss all of that stuff as well. So I've been trying to anyways prioritize certain things in the morning and other things in the afternoons when I know that my brain space may not be as clear. I don't draw as much as I used to, neither does Jen, but
Mhm.
if I know that I can do a lot more of that in the afternoon because I don't need quite as much mental clarity maybe to think with a pencil. So I will do a lot of that stuff in the afternoon that requires a little. I'm not writing as much and things of that sort.
Mhm.
And like Stephen said, some days are a little bit more frustrating than others when you get one thing checked off your list and five things added to it. But it is it is it is there's always another day, right? There's always another day
It,
until
it's
there's not.
it's taken me a long time to practice this where I'm a little bit more like you, Aaron. Like I like things very, very structured. I like to know what I'm walking into and I like to know what's expected. And I've realized that that's probably never going to happen. And
Mhm.
actually, I find a lot of joy in the process of trying to achieve it. So like I get a lot of joy of just getting things done, being there for my team, being on this webinar,
Mhm.
doing good work. So like if I don't make it all the way to the finish line, that's okay because that wasn't the inherent goal. The inherent goal is actually to enjoy the process. Um, and a schedule just helps me keep a little bit of structure so I know where I need to be and what I need to accomplish. But the goal was never to like get it all done. The goal was just have fun doing it.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
Absolutely.
as I get older too, I tend to do all the hard things in the morning. That is absolutely different than when I was
Mhm.
younger. Procrastination sets in when I was younger. I did all the hard things at night. I realized I'm just sharper. And like my mental capacity to solve really hard problems exists between 6 in the morning and noon. As soon
Mhm.
as I have lunch, it's kind of like I'm still doing work, but my ability to solve really hard problems becomes extraordinarily difficult. Um, I gotta lower let's say, the severity or the complexity of that problem drastically immediately after lunch.
Mhm.
That is true. That is
Yeah, I would
true.
agree with that 100%. I'm an early morning person, and about 12 o'clock, I start to get just a little fatigued throughout the day. So
It-
anything that is complex and needs a lot of thought, I do in the morning right when I get to work.
Mhm.
I would love to spend more time in Spain because I'm sure they figured it out, which is why
Yeah.
they yes and why there's such a long gap in that. I just
Good
don't
point.
think we figured it out here in the US.
We've our founder, who's now retired, but our founder Gary, when did he enact the hours that we have, Jen? It's been
Oh, I've been here
decades.
19 years and it's been the same. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. We do kind of normal hours, 7:30 to 5:30 Monday through Thursday, and then 7:30 to 11:30 loosely on Friday. And um, I came from the trades. I was carpenter prior to this, coming from that world where you are done at 5 or 5:30 on Friday night, and basically the weekend is Saturday, and then you're looking at Monday all of a sudden on Sunday. That extra 4 hours, extra 4 or 5 hours on Friday, even though some of us
Mhm.
may bleed into the afternoon working, it's a little quieter at least because um, people like Steven aren't calling us on Friday afternoons because we're
They'll
closed.
call you. I can still find you.
But that extra bit has also offered what I feel like a scheduled buffer, because knowing that technically our office is closed, even if I have extra work to do, I feel a little bit more brain space in that afternoon because I don't know if it's the expectation is a little bit lower for me on that day, but I can think about, I have a little bit more time um, in that afternoon. So the hours is a good thing.
Mhm.
I'm curious when you're all working on a project together, is it is it a regular practice to meet weekly, or is it every other week? Or does it matter? Does it get determined based on like the timing of the project? So if it's in, let's say, SD, maybe not so frequent. By the time we get to DD and CDs, maybe more frequent. And then very regularly together on during CA phases. Like I'm curious, like how do you think about that cadence structure specifically around working and collaborating on a project?
I would say from our team's collaboration, and everybody on this call, typically those meetings we tend to have more meetings as the project progresses. A lot of times, early on, we'll have a kickoff meeting and just discuss the project as a whole. And then once all the team members get on board, we start to kind of evaluate and making sure that we're coordinating different components, mechanical rooms are sized properly, and there becomes a lot more coordination as you move forward within the design process. So I think the cadence obviously picks up as you move through that design process, and the meeting time frame, or we have more frequent meetings throughout that process as well. So absolutely. And you were an architect for 10 years, so I'm sure very familiar with how that process works.
Yeah.
I
It's
am very, very familiar. It's a lot of reasons why I started Monograph 6 years ago. Was one, like making sure that those meetings actually occur. Um, and not only that, like this would be an interesting topic. That one of the big reasons why I started Monograph was I felt like 99% of the conversations, 99.9% of the conversations I would have while executing on work was about delivery of the work. So it was about like drawings that we had to do, details we had to solve, design systems that we had to like align on, and almost never around, let's say, the financials, the scope, and the and timelines of the project. And then unfortunately, I was a lot younger, so like I had managers and principals. I would always get yelled at when we're behind. I was like, hey, like it was never my intention to be behind schedule, either on budget or on time. I just don't have enough visibility into that so I can manage appropriately. Um, and that sparked the idea of Monograph 6 years ago. I was like, hey, like we should really focus on time and money. Because this is an area that most architects forget to talk about when it comes to project delivery. Mostly because we're all so passionate about design and so passionate about the architecture that that's where 90% of our energy goes. Uh, I just want to make sure that we are a services industry and like time and money does matter. And misalignments there actually is a very bad thing because it has a massive amount of impacts across the entire firm.
And I think even, we were talking internally in our office yesterday, having staff or giving staff that ability to see where they are in that process financially, I think is so critical. It's been really great. And it helps them, I think, identify the time that they have left. What are they going to focus on? And the same too, a little bit with, I think, our consultants. We don't see their day to day, but um, the overall process of it, I think, makes it's visually appealing and easy to understand.
Yeah. The as you mentioned, Robert, we are 90%, we like to spend 90% of our time on the design side of things. Although at this point that would be amazing. I feel like some weeks it'd be great to spend that much time in design. But um I actually really enjoy the business side of things as well. But we work with CVG, Short Venture Group, as we mentioned earlier. But the reason working with them kind of made apparent, and what so many small business owners know, that oftentimes you become a business owner not because you are great at business or you were trained in business, but because you love the thing that you do, which doesn't equal you were good at making that a successful business. It just means that you may have been skilled at what you did. And oftentimes, not always, that may mean that you're actually pretty bad at business, and you've spent all of your time being good at what you did and didn't understand the numbers side of it and didn't understand the time side of it and all of that. So it's been working with them, and then also, yeah, the struggle is often keeping tabs on awareness is a big part of it, right? How, again, in my past life as a carpenter, one of the things that we always did was everybody on the crew knew what the number was. This is how many hours we have. This is how many. So this is the expectation. We're going to hit that because if you don't know, you spend an extra 30 minutes working on this spot, an extra 30 minutes working over there, and pretty soon you're 50 hours over on something that was only a 50-hour project to begin with. And it's the same thing, only I think with the scale of projects that we work on, it can, if we have 5,000 hours in a project over 3 years, 2 years, if we're off incrementally every time, wasting time here or there and without any awareness, you can bleed away a lot of hours working on details that nobody's going to care about, that don't really affect the overall approach to the project. They may be important to us and we want to make sure that they're there, but it's easy to lose track. It's like budgeting, just on hours. Don't nickel and dime yourself away.
So speaking about systems, speaking about like all these variables at play, what kinds of tools are both of your firms using? So you've got tools as software, but you've also got mental models, systems. Would love to hear about how you think about those two things at play.
Go ahead, Stephen, you can start.
So the tools that we use Deltek in our office. So that's kind of what produces all the analytics that we track for KIP standpoint. Anything on the business side really is tracked through Deltek. from project management through business, finances, things of that nature. I would say as a part of that, obviously tools on a day-to-day basis from a collaboration standpoint, everybody's in today's society, I think, is using Revit. So from collaboration with, individuals like Studio GWA or whatever that may be, it really helps and enhances the ability to collaborate on projects. I don't know, Aaron, if you want to add to that and identify the tools that you guys are using.
Yeah, we use Revit as well, and on a team collaboration basis, we do work on central models, so we can see their work, they can see our work. Anybody in the midst of all that knows that it's not just as live as they make it sound, but it's as I would say a lot better than it could be. And we use a lot of other tools outside of that on the architecture side of things. But business wise, we use Monograph on the project management, firm management side of things, which has been really good. And being one thing that I think has benefited us, though we were working remotely with people before, in 2020, when the world changed, we were already in the process of moving everything completely cloud-based. We have some staff that are remote, a couple of staff that are fully remote, and then a lot of staff that are kind of in and out. I work in 2 different offices depending on time of week and whatnot. And so we had already started some of those virtual meetings. We all have experienced that a lot, but our weekly meetings went from, or I should say, we may not have had weekly coordination meetings with engineers before then. We may have had touch bases here and there, but we use Microsoft Teams and Microsoft environment for a lot of things. And so we will, especially between offices, we'll have recurring calls on projects that then if there's nothing, it's just canceled. But we have that kind of standing meeting on different projects where we're communicating in that way. So a lot of collaboration that way. We used Slack in the past, nothing against Slack at all, just integration wise. So we are mainly those things. We were mainly Monograph, and then the Autodesk side, or on Autodesk on the production side of things, and then Microsoft Office World for the rest of it.
And I forgot about Microsoft. I remember when we used to sit in a conference room every Monday, and we would have our weekly meetings. Everybody would sit around the table. Now all of our meetings internally have really moved towards a virtual setting. Obviously, I'm an individual who really likes that face-to-face interaction, be able to see individuals' body language and talk to them, shake their hand. That's just the person that I am. But I think with today's digital society, it's just, the convenience. You don't have to drive to every single construction meeting anymore. You can have some meetings can be taking place virtually, and you can get the same information out of them. And it really enhances our ability to be more efficient with the job that we're doing and the tasks that we're trying to accomplish.
What do you think the relationship between architects and engineers and how we work together is going to change in the coming years? Because I know Monograph here, we're moving in a direction where we're trying to bring that collaboration a little bit more tighter. Revit's been trying to do that for a few decades now, and I think there's a few other design tools out there that are trying to accomplish that. I'm really interested to get everyone's take here in terms of like what does that collaboration starts to look like when you start to think about the client to the architect to engineers to the rest of engineers, to the general contractor, to your procurement and vendors, to your subcontractors. Like there's actually quite a lot of stakeholders involved when we think about a project from start to finish.
I personally think the tools that Monograph has to offer, whether it relates to scheduling and setting that up, and I don't know, I guess we don't have Monograph in our office, but if it could kind of track time on both ends so you could see holistic project fees, being able to track finances almost together or working as a team to accomplish that really would help. It makes it more of a cohesive team as one. So you're working towards the same goal. Obviously, there's a delineation of fee there because you're 2 different entities. But from an internal standpoint where we have architects, we're able to do that on our side, and we're able to track and see kind of where we're at on overall project from a completion standpoint, where they're at on the design side. And it would allow everybody to kind of understand the next steps moving forward.
Steven, you sneaking into a product roadmap? Like, what's going on? Uh, I am curious, like, what other challenges you might see ahead? That like it's just things are just going to get a little bit more complex. I imagine with collaboration. It's more and more a distributed world. Both of you have mentioned that teams are now distributed, either partially or fully.
Mhm.
Meetings are becoming more and more digital versus in person. Um, and there's going to be a whole bunch of new tools that are going to change the way we work. Um, Jen and Aaron, I'd love to hear what's top of mind for both of you.
I think the one of the things that I've been thinking about, and we've talked a bit about internally and actually with other firms, is that um, I am thankful for and appreciate the flexibility that we are offered now with technology. And like Steven said, it doesn't. We work mainly around the Midwest, but we have projects around the country, as far away as Atlanta and Philadelphia and elsewhere. But and those projects would be a lot more difficult if we did not have the tools that we
Mhm.
have now. And I could see them getting even easier with additional tools. We scan. We do 3D scans of all of our building. Every project that we work on, we do 3D scan. So that's one of those things in the last, say, 8 years that has improved our ability. And I imagine it's going to get even better. We're on our fourth
Mhm.
iteration of scanners at this point as well, and they've just gotten more and more accurate, more and more efficient every time. But I think one of the challenges, I am a face-to-face person as Stephen is, and there is one of the challenges that I see and that we encounter even in our office is the knowledge transfer that occurs on the incidentals and the incidental time that you spend with your coworkers, and whether it's a project you're working on or not, if you are not present and in a physical space together, you don't necessarily get the benefit of learning from a struggle that somebody else is having, or this is something I've been curious about, but I don't. It's not on my project, but I heard you guys talking about it, and that. So, I having kind of come up in the industry in a very collaborative environment where you are constantly talking with the people around you, um, and overhearing conversations and whatnot. I learned a lot in that environment, and that's one of the, I think, challenges is replacing of and I know that there are systems and other things coming into play. Jen sent an example to me last night that I'm going to look at, but ways to train staff on things that we may have learned from observing the person right next to us. Well, if there's not a person right next to you, where are you getting that knowledge and how are you learning it? So that's one of the challenges, in my opinion, is knowledge transfer. And because knowledge transfer is not always I think a lot of the knowledge transferred is not scheduled. It's not a thing that I sat down to. We're having a meeting and now I'm learning something. It was incidental, accidental, almost via osmosis.
Oh, yeah, I think that's really true. It's something that we don't think about. It's unscheduled time, and before you know it, then we're questioning, well, why isn't the team understanding, the challenge of this particular detail or construction? And I think the other thing too that's changing as much, I mean, for both industries, ourselves and consultants, is construction, and we're seeing what technology is and how it can help with construction. And I think back to one of our projects that I believe, Aaron, the Woodstock project, it,
Yep.
it was scanned every night. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the contractor used a scanner so that it was really photographing progress, I think, consistently, to some degree. And that helps us when we're not in person all the time to better understand things that have been modified or changed. And yeah, and then going back to your original question of how are we going to work together differently? I don't know. I didn't see AI coming. I didn't see a lot of this stuff coming. So I feel like I'm gonna be hopefully surprised in a good way.
Jen, you should visit me in San Francisco and take a ride in a Waymo.
Yeah.
It is kind of out of world. Like I know Waymos don't exist in every city, so like but here it outnumbers Ubers and taxis, which is
Really?
just a bunch of cars everywhere
Just
with,
driving around.
with no drivers. Like it's
Yeah.
the first time seeing it, you kind of have to get used to the thought that hey, like there's no one in that driver's seat, and then over time it's like oh, like this is oh my God,
It's normal.
this is where we're going.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Speaking of that knowledge transfer, is there an example of a project that brought out an obstacle? There was a test and somehow you got through it.
I'm curious, Stephen, what do you think?
Yeah. What is he gonna say?
We have
We've
one
challenged
project,
Stephen a lot.
which I think was about a year ago. Actually, there was a structural project that was pretty difficult as well. But 1 year ago, the project that comes to mind is, and it was predominantly driven just by changes that were happening. We were working through design, and as everybody knows, design isn't always a smooth process. But I think we probably went through 5 iterations on a different project, and we just kept going back and forth. It was a restaurant actually, and the client didn't really understand what they wanted to do, so they constantly changed things, and that became a struggle, as we talked about earlier, with professional fees, things of that nature. You're always trying to manage that time. Obviously, we're a service industry, so we need to do what's right. We need to make sure that we're giving that client what they deserve and providing value added service. But I think that was probably one of the more challenging projects. Aaron, I think, Jen, were you on that one, or was Aaron?
Nope. No,
That
this
was
is
me.
Darren.
It was just Aaron. Okay.
Yeah, I think that the thing that has been a recurring theme throughout.
Oh, lost you.
Better. How about recurring theme in my in my career is communicate clearly and often. And I think it's especially important between consultants because we may be the main contact point with the client because we hold our consultants' contracts, and if we don't, just like if something changes on our side, we're doing an additional service. If we don't communicate that to the client quickly and ahead of time, I would say it makes that conversation that much more difficult. And if we are too quick to say something, like Jen said, we're not the only ones in the world that are the only ones on this project. If we communicate too quickly without communicating first with Stephen on, oh, hey, this is revision number 5 now. And funny story, we're ending up exactly where we started with 1. But nobody could have predicted that happening. But if we don't communicate with each other regularly on that, this is where we're at. It's occurred recently too on some structural stuff, like, hey, this is where we're at. This is how we got here. This is the result. It's a lot easier to communicate that with the client as well. So I would say that it's with Stephen. Not all of our consultants are as easy to pick up the phone and give a call to. Most of them are pretty good. We work with some good people. But that I think is the thing that is most prevalent on my mind is communicate quickly and often. Even if it's uncertain, we think we're going to go this way. How would that affect you? How would that affect you? What would that be cost service wise? How quickly? Because of course, the first questions from the client are, how much is it going to cost, and what's it going to take? How much time is it going to take? And they would like it to be free and now. And not all of them, but that's often we even assume that that's what they're thinking, though a lot of clients are a little bit more understanding than that. So communication being the biggest one. Yeah. Jen, you were going to say something. What was I want to hear you.
No, I think Steve, the other issue, it's not between us, it's always the unknowns, like when municipalities throw a curveball at you. I mean, you just can't predict it all. And I think that's just why it's important to have somebody that can, again, go with the flow and realizes that we're all in the same boat. We didn't predict this, you didn't predict this. And, the hurdle it's mutual,
Not on a project that we've worked on together with Angus-Young, but another another project has been is top of mind for me, and that most of our projects are pretty good at the whole team, design team, all of our consultants, and the contractor. We tend to have very good relationships with the contractors that are working on the projects, and always try to set it up with, hey, we're all shooting towards the same thing. We all want to get to the same end goal. There's going to be times when you need to help me, and there's going to be times when you need my help. So let's not shoot each other through the construction process. And that never is more apparent than when that situation doesn't exist, when it's a little bit more combative and it becomes a us versus them situation. And we've got, so relationships going all the way back to the beginning of this. Funny how people meet and things. Relationship is a very important part of all of this, because in the end, I want to be able to see people on the street and not feel like I need to cross to the other side to walk.
Oh gosh, Aaron, I hope I never feel that way, because that's a horrible way of like getting work done and just kind of like living life. Like relationships, you're absolutely right. They matter so much. That trust that we can work together and accomplish the same goal, same vision, and build some incredible buildings that will last way beyond our lifetime is like an incredible thing to be a part of. And communication is so important to making sure that that relationship stays healthy. Communication is so important to making sure that that trust stays very, very high. And that's such a key essential. I'm now really, really curious, like what's the most, let's say, unexpected thing that you've seen in past projects that have helped you collaborate better? That isn't so, let's say, obvious, like a relationship matters, communication matters, trust matters, but like what's something that's been unexpected?
That's a good one.
I was going to say that's a good question.
Silence.
It is a harder question.
That is a harder one.
Well, maybe I'll go first in terms of like my own journey. I didn't think it was going to take me this long. Like there's a lot of things that I feel like are very obvious and should be obvious in terms of like why they're important. But sometimes reflecting back, and maybe I'm going through a stage. I did just turn 40. So now I'm like trying to remember my 20s and my 30s. Like, oh, like, it's taking me a lot longer than I expected. And I wish it didn't for me. I wish I learned it faster. I wish I had a mentor, and which is also another obvious thing. Like I think a lot of designers, engineers, and professionals should have coaches and mentorships and like someone they can lean on. And I didn't personally take advantage of that throughout my career. I was stubborn. I thought I can figure it out on my own. And maybe Chris can attest, I'm still kind of stubborn. Trying not to be.
One of the things that comes to mind, while others think, and what I didn't anticipate when I was starting out. I mentioned I kind of came out of the trades. I did not anticipate how useful that would be, and I think it's one of the things that has made me passable at my job. And the other is how much that has helped, that common ground helps with connections on projects, with contractors that we're working with, people that we have to work with and have to get along with. And then also I happen to having been on the building side of things and architecture side of things. One of the things that I wish upon every designer, including engineer, Stephen, I haven't told you this part, but is to take a set of your own plans and with a team actually build it, and then discover all of the holes that exist in because they're tools of communication, and not everybody can read our minds. And some of my more humbling experiences have been on site as the one who drew everything up, and also as the one who's supposed to be leading construction, and discovering that I don't really know what I was thinking in this one spot, or I didn't communicate this clearly, and I can't remember the thought process back then. So and that was an unexpected thing. Again, coming from the construction side, I assumed, oh, I'm just going to remember all of that stuff when I am in the design world exclusively. And it's a good humbling experience every once in a while to try to build something you drew.
Mm-hmm. I'm always surprised by how many people don't want to pay us or pay us so late. And I don't know what to do about that.
What's the learning experience from that? I'm not sure.
Yeah. They don't teach that one in school.
Yeah, it's true.
I guess going back to the collaboration side of things and just thinking, Aaron came from kind of a different background of starting from the construction side and then working into the design side. I think it's using those past experiences too, and kind of the knowledge base that you can build from one project and transposing that to another project. So whether that is stepping back and looking at a plan set and just kind of trying to think through that as a team, or gaining that knowledge from a different project and finding applicability with what you're doing today. Because projects are not the same, period. But you can use little nuances from each project and make that process a lot more streamlined. You can make the communication more streamlined through that as well. Like, this is what we've encountered in the past, and just maybe going back to that mentorship thing or mentorship topic as well, is just being able to, communicate what you've been through to help the next generation continue to grow.
The main topic of this series: how should architects and engineers be working together?
How should we be working together, Steven?
I think AI is going to change how we work together, to be honest with you. I know we haven't really focused a lot on AI through these conversations, but and I don't think it's going to necessarily be through a communication aspect, because I think that's one thing that AI is not going to be able to do. But from a tracking, from a metrics perspective, from, identifying where others are at, I think softwares will be generated to enhance that, just transparency, I'll call it. I know it sounds like Monograph is going to be doing a lot of great things, so I'm sure they will find a way to enhance that communication and that effort. But I think AI is going to really bring our field into a different world that we don't even understand as of now.
And hopefully allow us to, I guess, be better stewards and communicate better with our clients. That's a little bit of my hope, is getting in front of them on that education piece of it. I feel, especially in the work that we do, adaptive reuse, people come to us, they bought a building, now what? And we have to take a step back and say, okay, before you start, we kind of have to lay the groundwork on what it is that we do and how we work together, and even bring in our consultants sooner rather than later, and talk through the different options that we have and the challenges that we are going to see. Again, just making sure that everything's wide open, and everybody's going in it, with eyes wide open, basically.
Yeah, early collaboration, I think I'm a bit jealous of Stephen having the architecture and engineering all in one. That conversation is, we see it in our office on the urban planning to architecture side. There's a lot of benefit to having the different approaches, mental approaches to it, and everybody sees things from a different perspective. And I think that is a beneficial thing long term. And to his point about AI, I agree that is, without us communicating maybe directly everything, the ability to be made aware of progress, made aware of changes is where I see some change.
I'll just come down and work out of your space, Aaron. Don't worry.
There we go. We'll find a desk for you.
Thanks for bringing more attention and detail to this topic that we're trying to uncover as a community among architects, engineers, landscape architects, all the professionals responsible for the built environment. Thanks again, Jennifer, Stephen, Aaron, and Robert. We had a lot of fun.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.